if it loads.
Yeah, I was like, are we though?
Hello. Are we though? Indeed. I always love checking because I never, ever trust the internet. Let's see. Let us see. Okay, sets are live. All right, good deal. I have to sneeze. Oh no. Oh no. Oh, my eyes are watering.
Oh no, but those are the worst sneezes.
And it's gone. And it just left me with watery eyes. How's everyone doing today?
Cass is doing great.
Oh my goodness. People are slowly trickling in here. I want to say I'm excited to discuss this book, but like it just made me sad for like most of it.
I was like, I have to admit, like there were also less sad moments that I just forgot existed, but it was still not. No, I was powering through. I was not having a good time.
The first half of this book is rough. Let some more people join. Everyone finish on time? We had any last minute readers today?
Other than ourselves, as usual.
Other than ourselves, right? Hey, I finished this one last night. I didn't finish this one this morning. I just woke up like a half hour ago, though. So I really thought like this book was definitely more heart-wrenching than it was as well. I think I just like made it worse in my head, but reading it, I was like, okay, it's still really sad, but it wasn't as bad as I expected.
Oh,
people are on top of their stuff. Love that. Proud of y'all. I'm excited for book 4. Book 4 is definitely one of my favorites of the series.
I have exactly zero thoughts about book 4, honestly. I thought that The Ruins of Gorlin was a book that I never thought about, but I realized that it's actually book 4. I just never have any thoughts about that book. I don't know why.
I really like it because there's like a battle, which obviously because the title is Battle for Scandia or Oakleaf Bears, depending on which country you're from. But I'm excited. I just remember really loving how many characters get to interact in that book.
I think I'm also just excited because since I never have any thoughts about it, there's like no preconceived element of the book. So I feel like I can maybe I can just actually reread it and be surprised at every page.
That'll be fun. We'll wait just a couple more minutes and then we'll start officially discussing some stuff. If y'all give star ratings, I would love to know what your star rating was. 5 stars.
I'm going to show the other cover just because I can.
I want them so bad. I want them so bad.
I think like both my mom and I aged 10 years in the process it took to acquire these. It was... Yeah.
I don't know what I'm supposed to do now because Book Depot is shutting down. And I'm like...
No, they are?
Yeah. Yeah, they were acquired by Amazon and then promptly shut down. So, yeah.
No. Okay, well, another reason to cry myself to sleep tonight, I guess. That's literally how I get all the new books. I order them off of Book Depot.
I know, and same for me because a lot of these books don't release in the US until literally like a year later.
Same, and I just like I don't want the US, like I can get the US covers, but they don't match my series.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say they used to be Amazon. Amazon is just doing things. I don't know what they're doing.
Amazon's just okay, then I don't know.
People are generally saying 4 also.
4?
1 star for emotional damage. I feel that. I feel that.
No, I definitely understand the 4 stars. I think the first half was really strong, and then I think it just like slowed down a lot in the second half. Or I was just up late last night trying to read it and just trying to finish it, and I was like, can we be done? All right. The Icebound Land. Lots of emotional damage, especially when you sit back and think about the fact that these characters are 16, 17. The trauma that they had to go through
I think that part does get harder as you get older, because the first time I read these books, I was like 13 or something. I was like, I mean, you're 16.
You
Come on,
got
it's
it.
not that bad. Like, you're basically an adult, and I'm 21. I'm like, if you put me in that situation, I would die.
I would die.
Just.
I'm not built for the cold, first off. That would
No, that I could do.
would
That I
freak me
could
out.
do. I
Nope.
could live in Skenya all year long. That's not a problem. The seas, on the other hand, no. One storm, I'm out.
Just throw yourself overboard.
Less weight. It's good for the ship, I guess. Whatever.
So the question is, you can survive extreme cold, but could you survive in extreme heat?
I could not.
Okay, so you would survive book 3. I think I would survive book 7.
I would not survive book 7. No.
Oh my goodness. I think it's really interesting too, because you don't realize, like, at least when I was younger, like, reading these, I didn't realize how deep this book really went with, like, drug addiction. It's insane. I was like, our poor baby.
I also appreciated the whole recovery bit more. Because I think the first time I was like, yeah, okay, he's like getting less addicted, and then he's not
Right.
addicted anymore. Great. And now I could actually appreciate like all these little steps that went into it.
Right.
Also, can we please talk about how angry Eric got over the drugs? I was
Yes.
like, I love you. He was just so
really-
upset. He was like, I had nothing to do with that. I was like, okay, calm down. I believe you.
This is like the first book where I really started to like Eric, and luckily we do get to see him more. Obviously, book 7's title is literally Eric's Ransom, so we get more Eric action. But I just love him as a character, and I love the respect he shows for Will, and the entire reason why he decided to free Evelyn and Will was because of how much he respected Will. And that quote where he was like, he has like a true heart of a warrior, and da da da. I'm like, yes, he does. Yes, he does. I love how Eric was basically a bad guy, but at least he had a moral code.
Yes. Also, when he talks about like when they're on the island, and he's like, I'm not gonna let anything happen to Evelyn, like not because she's my prisoner, but just because it's not okay. I was like, cool, you're like the OG feminist, dude.
Right. Yeah, I really do love his character. And it's interesting because, like, well, I guess that's typical. Okay, I can't say that. Never mind. I was like, that's a little bit of a spoiler. I can't dive into that. But Evelyn is 16. She had to take care of a drug addict, and I can't imagine how that must have felt. Yeah, because she was basically alone, and I feel like she almost felt even more alone than if Will wasn't even there, because she was she had to take care of herself, take care of someone else, take care of the horse, survive out in the wilderness, which she had no experience with, because Will was the adventurous. He was the one that knew the outdoorsiness. He was the one trained as the ranger. She's a princess. Where was her survival skills? Her dad stopped letting her play outdoors when she was 10. She was
10. I have nothing to add to this. I was like, yes.
But she is an absolute legend, though. An absolute queen. An absolute badass.
I also like her characterization on the island, when first she's like kind of withdrawn and she doesn't want to escape, and Will's like, oh, that's probably girls. That's so disappointing. And then it's like, no, actually she has a plan, and it might actually be better than yours, until we hear about the whole whatever Ragnak was doing or whatever. But
yeah,
before that she was like, no, actually. And I really liked her characterization, that you feel like it's going to get very stereotypical, but then it doesn't. Like,
yeah, and then it doesn't.
And
I like how both of them were like, oh, girls and boys. Yeah,
also,
I'm glad that was finally like told to Will, like, hey, by the way, I'm Princess Cassandra. Nice to meet you. Oh, you can only imagine how much my ego was like, yes, a character named after me. And then I was like, I don't hate her character, but I do prefer her as Evelyn. All the scenes where she's Evelyn, I'm like, yes, girl boss.
I mean, I'm a Cassandra apologist, no matter what book we're in, so...
I am until Royal Ranger. And then John Flanagan and I just need to have a little chat. What are you doing? Did we have... Oh, I did find it kind of weird that Will still didn't recognize her even when she told him she was a princess of Erluin. Like, does no one know the princess of their country?
I don't think they really do, like, unless you see that person in real life. I don't think, like, there's really a culture where they have, like, drawings of important people being spread around the country. Probably a couple, but why would, like, an orphan see it?
Right. And she had cut her hair, and she was, like, filthy from, like, when... Like, she hasn't looked presentable in, like, how long now? Like...
Yeah, she was already traveling undercover in Gallica, so...
Do what?
She was already, like, traveling undercover before she met Gillen and Will. Like, she was traveling undercover, and then she escaped, like, the Wurgles, so she was, like, extra undercover, and then she met the Rangers, so she was also undercover, and then she met the Scanians, so she was also undercover.
And then she was dragged all the way across Stormway, where she was like, all right, maybe I can break my cover. And then the Valis
oh, no.
She's like, okay, I could die.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't say exactly, like, why she's not recognized, but also, I don't know. I think it's like, would you expect to just meet the princess just out in the wild? Like, even if he was like, that kind of looks like Princess Cassandra, I doubt he would ever be like, that is definitely Cassandra.
On the latter comment, like, he didn't even know the name of the princess when he at least know that. I think Will, of all characters, is a little bit hazy on details.
Yeah.
I don't think he's like, I think when he has to, like, concoct a plan or something, he's very detail-oriented, but just in general life, he's kind of clueless sometimes. Also, when he asks, like, oh, are we in Scandia already? And Svengel's like, no.
This is Scorchel. What are you talking about?
What? Like, wouldn't Will know that from his geography lessons that A, it takes a lot longer to travel to Scandia, and B, that there's an island in the middle? I was like, oh, it really shows that you don't like your geography classes.
Right. His ADHD just kicked in. Right?
Details? I don't know them. They don't exist.
What are those? We don't pay attention to those. Does anyone have a favorite moment from the book? Any standout moments? Do you have anything off the top of your head, Resley?
For some reason, the first scene I thought of was Halt's banishment, but that's definitely not my favorite scene.
Mine was him in the tavern. That's the first scene I thought of, and I was like, that's not my favorite.
Favorite or, like, most emotionally damaging?
Right. Oh, that's easily when most emotionally damaging is when Halt gets his oak leaf taken away. Bro, that hurt. I was like, no.
One thing I do love about that scene is that Gillen is the first and, like, actually only person he explicitly tells why he did what he did. Because he's like, oh, I don't want to lie anymore. Like, I don't want to play pretend anymore. I just want to tell one person. And that one person is Gillen, I think also just says so much about their relationship, because we don't really get to see a lot of their relationship, but we know that they're close because, you know, they've been mentor and apprentice.
Gillen series. John Flanagan, please. We are begging. I will every live stream. Y'all are going to hear me beg for a Gillen series. Every live stream, or like a collection, like a book 11, like collection of short stories. Like, give us something.
The moment when Halt was after that Fey guy, then he shouted King's Ranger, and 10 armed men just dropped their weapons. I like that too. I wish we had more scenes of that, just in general. Just the power of the phrase King's Ranger.
Yeah. I really like the first scene where they encounter, like, a knight guarding the bridge, and Halt is just so done. He's like, these dumb ass people, I'm just gonna shoot him and move on, but then we're gonna have problems and I just don't want to deal with it. And Horace is like, hey, I could do that. Oh, I love the growth. I love the growth from book 1 to book 3 with Horace. What about us?
Halt talking shit about Duncan, or just Halt and Horace bonding? Yes. Actually, talking about the shit, talking about Duncan, there is one thing that I really like about the scene where Halt gets banished, is when Duncan says he's banished for 1 year, and his secretary's just losing his mind. It's like, you cannot do that.
And then he's like, wait, why am I objecting so much? Like,
but also because then it says that, like, you know, there's obviously a lot of stuff happening in the room because everyone was like, what? This is unprecedented. And then it says that Duncan sees Errol grinning like super widely and Crowley like turning to the side to hide a grin in his skull. I'm like, yes, I like that.
And it shows how valuable he is to the kingdom, and they realize that, and it's not a scene they ever thought that would have to play out. I love how it was displayed that Halt missed Will, and I was actually happy to have a curious youth like Horace beside him. Yes, like the amount of times that Halt had to hide his grin from Horace. So good. So good.
I would love a novella just about Halt and Will finally getting therapy. Wouldn't we all? I think that would be therapy for me too, to be honest.
Oh, I think all these characters need therapy. Evelyn, after what she went through with this book.
Oh.
She's going through it.
Can someone just give her like a hot bath and a nice meal and then just tuck her into bed? I feel like that's what she needs.
Right?
The moment when Halt got emotional during that song and said Will was worth at least a few tears from a grizzled old wreck like himself. Yes. If that scene ever makes it to the big screen, everyone's going to cry. We all need tissues.
Absolutely. And then immediately followed by him freaking shooting the gauntlet.
Which is amazing. Honestly, how do you do that?
How?
It's like, no. That poor man had to deal with both Duncan and the Rangers. He deserves a break. Everyone deserves a break. I think they should all go on a nice long holiday to a warm country. Duncan probably also knew that Halt would do anything to find Will, as he tried to legally leave before. Speaking of, it hurt me so much when Halt told Crowley, like, I'll just go to Duncan. And Crowley was like,
he won't see you.
You can't. He will not. And I was like, no. Because it means that everyone talked about it, and like they probably tried to find a solution, but they couldn't because they just needed him.
Yeah. And then when they were like, Crowley and Halt were like fighting, I was like, stop it. Stop it.
Don't fight. Yeah.
Yeah. Charlie, they do not go on a vacation in book 7. Shit goes down in book 7. That is not a vacation for those poor characters. You know what happens, okay? That's just more trauma. Are you kidding me? Vacation my ass. Oh my goodness.
This one was no plot, just vibes, and I'm totally here for it.
Bad vibes. I mean, there's a little bit of plot. I mean, I can kind of see where you're going. They don't really make a lot of progress, but I think it's hard too, because like, what is this, a 300-page book? Yeah, 250 and
250 minus 3.5.
Mine's like 266. Yeah, mine's 266. I don't know. But I think John Flanagan still wanted to show like how long it takes to like travel and the slow progression without doing like too many like time jumps almost. Because it's taken them months. Like months have definitely passed with this book. Obviously, because they had to cross Stormway, which traveling by boat takes forever anyways. Kara being a menace in chat.
That's why you shouldn't be on your phone when you're watching this live stream. How dare you?
Yeah. Ignore that. Now I'm explicitly going to call you out. And that is true. There were two sides to be told, which I love the back and forth.
Especially because Halt and Horace have a bit more banter at most points. So it's
like
just
lighter.
Yeah. I need that sometimes.
A good reprieve from the trauma that Will and Evelyn are going through.
Just to look at the other trauma that they are going through.
For sure. I really have a no thoughts head empty about this book too. As I read, I'm like ranking, like trying to like re-rank the series of like, oh, because I feel like I just binged through the series typically so fast that I just struggled differentiating what happens between each book. But now that I'm reading like one per month, I'm like, oh, interesting.
I'm looking at my notes and I mainly have a lot of caps lock, no, don't do that. When you use trauma to get a break from your other trauma. That is me going back and forth between all the Range Apprentice books.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, you know what scene I also love on the island when it's when Eric is basically like finally calling out Slagor and he's like, here's a keg. The eyes are a little close to each other, but you know, so are the real ones. Yeah. Whatever. What if we all just stare at this? Maybe something appears there and was like, should I guess. And he just full on throws that knife through the room.
Another scene that would be so good on like in a movie format. I can just imagine all the Scandians just going to look at the keg and then just it slamming across the table.
But also just how that starts, that Slagor's like essentially assaulting Evelyn, and Eric's like, no, you cannot, like, you cannot be responsible for the death of one of my slaves. And he's like, I'm not killing this girl. And he's like, no. But there's the boy, and I would have to kill him.
He's gonna kill you.
The girl, he will kill you. So, and I just really love how that all played out. It also really shows that Eric is just, he's really good strategic, and he knows people, and he has a really good eye on the room because he sees every little thing that Will does. Like, he's usually not explicitly watching Will, but he sees everything that he does. And I'm like, I do respect that a lot.
And I think he is like definitely a respectable character, especially because he had said at some point he was like he found himself relating more to Will and Evelyn than his own countrymen because he does not respect Slager at all because he's kind of a piece of crap. And so
just a little bit.
just a little. Yeah. And unfortunately, we get to see more of him too. Woo, Slager.
Could you imagine if Will didn't pick up on that subtext and did nothing? It would have been the most anticlimactic shit, but I could see it happening.
Now, if we just peer here at the keg.
And Will's just looking at the keg.
We're like, what's going to appear there? His ADHD kicks in. He's like, ooh, who's throwing stuff at this keg? What are we doing? Oh, shit, that's me. Eric does have a lot of qualities that make a good captain, I think. Yeah, I really do like his character, and I was really happy that we get to see more of him. For sure.
What I also really liked in this book is that you do, like, sometimes I look at the characters and I'm like, there's no way you're 16. And sometimes they behave like their teenage selves. And I'm like, yes, good for you. Like that scene when we first meet Deepernieu, and it's like, I'm Deepernieu, and Horace is like, good for you. I'm like, that is such a 16-year-old thing to say.
He was so chill about it too. He's like,
good for you. Like
that. Okay. Okay, that's good for you. Cool. Good deal. Yeah.
I appreciate that also because it really helps with the characterization. With everything that they go through, it's really easy to forget that they're teenagers, but then it's like little phrases like this that I'm reminded, like, oh yeah, they're 16.
Or the scene when they first get to, are they in port? Are they in Gallica at this point? Are they in port? The girl, the couriers who have to run messages.
You know what the worst part about that is? Like, there's this, like, a lot of people that I know have said, like, oh, I didn't realize the first time I read it that Halt was pulling his leg. Like, I also thought, oh, sure, yeah, same. I thought that too. But now I was rereading it, and it literally says that Halt looks at Horace, and he's like, I hope he doesn't realize that I'm talking nonsense. And I was like, how did I miss it? It literally says that it's a lie. And I never picked up on it. I was like, yeah, I wear short skirt when I have to go for a run. Of course.
Right? Oh my gosh. They just have to be grown-ups in a lot of moments, which make it easy to forget that they're teenagers sometimes. And I think that the setting of the book also allows for that to happen because people do have to grow up fast. Like, they're training for war by the time they're 16 or training for a job by the time they're 16. that could be life or death. And so I think that naturally matures people quicker. So I think they're definitely more mature than, like, let's say 16-year-olds nowadays, especially nowadays. I work with some 16-year-olds, and just sometimes you want to just take their heads and clunk them together, rattle their brain cells around to get them working again, you know? Oh, goodness. No offense to any 16-year-olds in the chat. I feel like I should throw
I mean,
that out
a little offense, apparently, but not too much.
I don't know. It's just so funny because I think when I was 16, I was like, I'm so mature. And I look back and I'm like, girl, sit down. Sit down.
Horace looked death in the eye in book 2. Nobody was a challenge to him. Yes.
16 years old.
But I also appreciate that it's not just him being a natural. Like, he says that that Rodney told him he's a natural, and then it says that Gillen told Harold. But you also just see how much he's learned just from his classes. And it's like, oh, look at the way he's sitting at his horse, and he's dropped this a couple times, and he's done that. So, like, this is how you know that he's not a good, and this is what it can do. And he's just also a strategic genius in that sense. I'm like, you're a natural, but you've also been paying attention to your classes. I love that for you. I love that.
Absolutely.
Oh,
parallel? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go for it.
I was going to say a parallel I really like between book 1 and book 3 is when book 1, when they're going after the Calcara, Gillen's like, but he's just an apprentice. But then in book 3, the same thing, Holt makes the same argument. He's just an apprentice, and Crowley has to be like, no, he took the oath just like everyone else. And it just hurts because I'm like, in the first book, it was like for good. It was like he's going off and he's helping the kingdom and he's showing his like growth. In this book, it's like him trying to defend, like he's just an apprentice. And Crowley's like, no, remember? He's a ranger just like everyone else. I'm like, he's a baby. Save him.
There is someone commented, like, would you rather have a movie or a series? And on a related but slightly different note, in my notes, it said, if the movie or television show or whatever ever makes Will and Evelyn kiss, I will personally come for them. I
will look at the director's address.
They did not cross that line. And if someone makes them cross that line, I am also going to be crossing lines.
I do really love their relationship in this book, though. Especially,
I do. So don't make it overly romantic.
There was one line in this book that I had never read before for some reason. Like, I don't know if I just accidentally missed it. Give me a second. It's the very end. Okay. It's when Will came back, or Evelyn came back after hunting, and Will finally, like, regained his sense of being. And Will pounded the heels of his fist on his forehead, trying to reassure him that Evelyn had not suffered because he had somehow failed her. And then, even as he thought about her, the door of the cabin slammed back on its crude leather hinges, and she was there, framed against the bright sunlight, reflecting from the snow outside, and as breathtakingly beautiful as he knew he would always remember her to be, no matter how long he lived or how old they might both become. I was like, how did I miss that sentence? That is so good.
But that I do appreciate that, like, there's hints of like a romantic tension between them, because I feel like it makes sense if you're in that setting that just kind of develops, but they never cross that line. And I think that also says a lot about who they are as people, that they didn't in that moment cross that line. So I just don't want any director to ever make them cross that line, because I feel like for me personally, it would inherently change something about who they are as characters.
Sorry, who are we trying to abduct and torture? Oh, okay.
Oh, the directors. We just want to, yeah.
See, because I read above that, Rosalie and Cass just want to talk then. And then someone was like, we can abduct and torture them. And I was like,
we're about to be...
to us.
Well, I mean,
that's where my mind went.
If we abduct you to the Netherlands, like, I don't see any problems.
I mean... All right, should we start with some trivia? People ready for some trivia? I'm ready for some trivia.
I changed I changed the one mistake that was in there. Bless you.
Thank you.
Wouldn't be the script writers be the one to call. I don't know who it is. I will just come for
We'll
all
interrogate
of them.
all of them. We'll wrap them up in a pen.
Just
I don't know.
Get the whole team out of there. Whatever. Okay, let's see if I remember how to share my screen.
I believe in you.
I was like, I know it's only been a month, but it still feels like it's been so long.
I had the opposite thing where I was like, oh my gosh, we have arranged the Apprentice live stream again so soon. Life has just been flying by for me.
Oh, you can still... Okay, wait. I'm going to redo this.
Okay.
I just had like all the questions on there already and stuff.
I got you.
I did have the foresight today to remove the answers. So that if something like this happened, you can see the answers.
There you go.
I'm learning.
Well, you know, fourth time is the charm. Third time? No. Fourth time? There we go.
Oh no, I have to turn the sound off.
Holt really only is mid-30s in this book?
Yeah. He is, like, roughly, if you think from the start. But he has pepper and salt hair.
Because the stress of saving the kingdom's ass like every 15 years.
Like, I have more gray hairs after just reading this book.
All right, there is the code or QR code.
Whatever you want. You can use either. Don't forget to put your Discord.
Put your Discord. Yep. Discord username numbers, or Discord numbers.
Yeah, we'll talk about Halt's age when we get to later books. Because then we have more information so we can do the maths. But yeah, no, he's not as old as you think.
Crazy.
Don't forget to put your Discord thing in your username.
Yes, that way I can contact y'all. There's like if you go to your Discord, there should be like a series of 4 numbers after your name. I just need y'all to include that. That way I can contact the winner.
And I do have to, I see we have more than 10 viewers. So I do have 2 versions again. If not everyone can make it into this one, we have another one.
We do have another one.
And I used a random number generator to make a division between the questions. So if one is harder than the other, that is not my fault.
All right.
Honestly, Kahoot is not the same without the sound. Like,
honestly,
it just feels so much more static if you don't have the constant sound on there. Oh.
And I think to change your name, you have to leave and then rejoin.
I think so too. That's what we did anyways.
To the people named Mooney and Ranger M, please make sure your Discord numbers are in your username. Just makes it easier on us to contact the winner. Are we going to need... I don't know if we're going to need a second one.
Yeah. I mean, if everyone who's in there or who wants to be in there is in there.
Good deal.
I think people are now also leaving and
the couple people that had to leave change their username, and then I think we'll start.
Yeah, we had 8 people before, so people are still joining.
Yeah. I don't mind if people don't have their Discord tag, as long as you let me know after if y'all win in the chat. It just makes it easier. It's a little easier. One of these days, I'll tell people before we start opening the Kahoot. I just forget every time. All right, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. We'll give people 1 more minute to join if they would like to. I think we have 2 more people.
I see the 10-hour Kahoot loop on YouTube, and I counter Kahoot with Sweet Dreams because it works so well. And I think there's like YouTube videos that have combined Kahoot sounds with regular songs, and it works so well with Sweet Dreams. I was obsessed with it in high school. Still, if I ever hear the song Sweet Dreams, my mind just adds the Kahoot song.
Starts the Kahoot.
Just...
Oh no. Oh no.
Oh yes.
All right.
Anyone?
Is everyone back in that would like to join? Are we good?
I think we are good.
All right. I don't see anyone saying no, wait, so we will.
Oh, someone. You're welcome. Someone just left. What happened? Are you okay?
Come back.
What? Don't leave me.
There we go.
Okay, they're back.
All right.
We're going to start.
Let us begin. I love the 3 minutes of this awkward, like, we good? Till trivia version A.
Yeah, that's what it's called.
I was going to read it, and then I was like, I don't want to butcher.
I had the exact same thought. I was like, what does this mean?
Is it Mon Sombre? But that sounds more Spanish when I say it like that.
In my mind, it's just Mon Sombre or something, but that's, once again, just a Dutch person butchering French. So, you know,
don't know how it be. Ooh, y'all are speedy.
Nice. Well, I'm glad we started easy. Actually, I don't know if it's going to get harder or no. I have...
She makes the Kahoots, but she doesn't pay attention to the Kahoots.
Exactly. I'd like to be surprised too. No, the thing that I also had with this, I remember finding out that it meant Dark Mountain because I did like a Google search or something, and I was like, that's genius, that's amazing. And I was rereading the book, and it literally says in the book what it meant, and I was like, wow, 13-year-old me just did not pay attention. That's fine. You all did pay attention, so that's good. You're better than 13-year-old me. How does Hall defeat another French name that I'm not going to pronounce?
Pardon you? Let the American butcher it. That's normal.
Well, if I were from Belgium, I would not butcher it, but I'm not, so whatever.
I'm from, like, America, and then I'm also from Texas, so it just makes it worse.
Again, almost everyone has it correctly. That's solid.
Shoots is... Are those saying 0 on our scores?
Hmm?
Were the scores 0?
Oh, no, they were just loading, and I just didn't let them.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure it was working. What's Evelyn's personal weapon of choice?
If y'all do too well on this...
One of these.
Yeah, so it's what's her, like, personal, weapon of choice. Solid. If y'all do too well on this, I'm going to make harder questions, and you're going to hate me, and it's going to be fun.
And this will make them too hard, and we'll never find the balance.
Well, but it's really hard to, like, see it does work. I just never let it load. It is really hard to figure out, like, how difficult questions are or are not. Right. Because it also just really depends on what you personally focus on when you're reading the book.
That is true.
This also just sounds a bit like a rap or something, right? Like she lied, she bribed, she threatened, all of the above. Solid.
Oh, she lied, she bribed, she threatened. It's
also,
the Reigns of the Princess rap.
Also because the first two rhyme, it just turns something on in your brain.
Yeah.
Next time I have to write poetry for a class, I'm just going to submit this.
She lied, she bribed, she threatened. Ooh. Who did Halt have to track down at the start of the book? Folder. His name was Rupert, but he was tracking down Folder.
For a literal second, I thought you were going to say Voldemort. I don't know why. You said full, and my mind just went, the Mord. And I was like, no. Wrong franchise. Oh, okay. Why does it say injury? I'm sorry. What does Horace injure in his continuous fights with the Gallican Knights?
He really did fight a lot of knights.
Yeah. Just
Conquest.
every day it was like, let's go.
All right, just boop. All right, next one.
Also, I always call the people that live in Gallica Gallicans, but apparently it's the Gal. That's
Really?
what it says in the book, and I read that I was like, no.
Oh.
I'm still gonna say.
Interesting. I guess that kind of makes sense.
It makes sense, but also I'm not gonna take.
Well.
Yeah, I'm gonna take Gallicans and run with it. Question 7. Oh, we're going so fast. Where's Evelyn assigned as a slave? If people get this one wrong, they're gonna come at me. I will fight you. No. Where was she assigned? Okay. Oh, that's
proud of y'all. Proud of
glad
y'all.
No one's coming for me.
Or you're not coming for anyone,
I'm always coming for people.
Fair enough.
Oh, this is 8 already. What was Rodney's response to Horace wanting to join Hall to go look for Will? It was one thing. Iconic.
Absolutely iconic.
Just...
I underlined that when I was annotating my book. I was like, yes, an icon.
I wish, yeah, I don't know. I wish for so many things.
Not someone answering no.
But I see Rodney doing that, like Horace.
You're like, no.
I do also appreciate how Horace went about the whole thing, because Hall was convinced that he just ran away, and Horace was like, no, I told him I was going. And Hall is just flabbergasted. He's like, you literally just went into his office and said that you're leaving to do something illegal. And Horace is like, yes. What about it?
Right. And Horace tells him he said that he could probably use a good sword. And Halt's like, what did he really say? That you could use a good sword.
And who would that be? No response.
Like, bitch. I feel like I would say that too. Like, oh, where is he? Where's that good sword we were talking about?
Easy peasy Halt's treasy. No.
Can we kick someone from... No, I'm kidding. Oh my goodness. Number 9.
Ooh, we have a switch.
Ooh.
All right, for last question. What has this guy done in response to his son's death?
Oh. Ragnak?
I think so. I don't know. This one, but when I pronounce his name, it's just in Dutch. End of story. I cannot make this name sound not Dutch.
Yeah, I don't know. Ragnak? I don't know. I've not pronounced a lot of these names out loud ever.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I'm doing so, I'm like, do I know language? No.
I also love about this when Eric finds this out, he's like, is he stupid? Has someone checked if there's a brain in there? Like, what?
Eric's he's literally out of his mind. He's not well. He's always been crazy, but now, since his son's dead, he's even more crazy.
What? All right, so this is...
I said Ragnak. That could work too. Ragnak. I don't know.
I feel like if you say that too many times, you're going to say redneck.
Ew.
That's what my mind associated with that. Okay, so this is our current scoreboard, and we have one more question.
One more question.
Just one more question. Oh.
What is Depardieu's insignia? Do I know this?
Well, you should, because I sent you all the questions and answers.
Yeah, and
easy peasy Halt's trees is my new tagline. To be fair, it sticks. I'm gonna be thinking, only one person got it right.
I didn't know this. I thought it was a Black Raven too.
Yeah. I'm glad I managed to find one hard question. But it's a white raven on a black surcoat.
Black? Wait, a white raven on a black suit? Okay, interesting. Yeah, I did not pay attention to that detail.
Well, I saw it and I was like, this is gonna go in there.
Proud of you, Reggie. All right, what are the results? This is gonna mix things up.
Yeah, I'm glad that this was the last question because a lot of things are happening in the comments.
I feel like I need a drum roll.
Then we have like the beautiful spotlight.
Reggie came in clutch with that last question. Oh, I need to actually write this down. So, oh, that's on my face. Cool. I always love when you open your camera to take a picture of something and it's like on your face, like really zoomed in, and there's like, wah.
That's me. Okay, cool.
Congrats to Reggie for knowing things that even I didn't.
Which is especially terrible considering that I sent you everything yesterday.
Listen. No, if my parents see this stream, they will give me so much shit. They'll be like, oh, I thought you knew everything about Ranger's Apprentice. What's up with that? Now I want to do version B just for funsies. I don't think we have time because I have to read the first chapter of Battle for Scandia. Unfortunately. Well, not unfortunately. A little unfortunately. I did read through the chapter for I could be a little bit mentally prepared for all the words that I can't pronounce. So.
But I will also, like, all the questions that we didn't use, I'm going to use them on my own account on Instagram for my questions of the day, because then I don't have to think.
So go follow Rosalie. Be aware of spoilers though, because she be spoiling things left and right.
That is a good one. I spoil all the books except for the latest. Yeah, except for the latest.
Yeah. Because it takes you like 10 months to read the newest book that comes out.
It does. No, but okay, little.
By the way, are there still extra points for being faster than others? Because I do notice a delay between.
Yeah, that's something that I cannot turn off, unfortunately. That's just the way that Kahoot works. Like, you get like if you get the answer right, you get points, and then depending on how fast you are, you get more points. And that's just so inherent to Kahoot that I cannot change that, unfortunately.
It's that way with like a lot of quiz platforms too, because I looked at quizzes and I think they do the same thing. Unfortunately. But the good news is we don't allow like repeat winners, so everyone should have the opportunity. All right. I don't actually have the Battle for Scandia with me, but luckily they include chapters at the end, so okay.
Luckily.
Be prepared for Cass's rendition of the first chapter of the Oakleaf Bears or the Battle for Scandia. Sorry, I'm on my bed and I'm just like trying to get comfy again.
Make sure you're comfortable, you know.
Gotta prepare. Yeah, this is the first time I haven't streamed in front of my bookshelves because there's nothing left on my bookshelves. Anyways. All right. Chapter 1. I get so nervous every time.
You're gonna do great. Like, you can do this.
All right. It was a constant tapping sound that roused Will from his deep, untroubled sleep. He had no clear idea at what point he first became aware of it. It seemed to slide unobtrusively into his sleeping mind, magnified and amplified inside his subconscious, until it crossed over into the conscious world, and he realized he was awake and wondering what it might be. Tap, 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 tap. It was still there, but not as loud now that he was awake and aware of the other sounds in the small cabin. From the corner, behind a small curtain of sacking that gave her a modicum of privacy, he could hear Evelyn's even breathing. Obviously, the tapping hadn't woken her. There was a muted crackle from the heaped coals in the fireplace at the end of the room, and as he became more fully awake, he heard them settle with a slight rustling sound. Tap, tap, tap. It seemed to come from nearby. He stretched and yawned, sitting up on the rough couch he'd fashioned from wood and canvas. He shook his head to clear it, and for a moment the sound was obscured. Then it was back once more, and he realized it was coming from the window outside. The oiled cloth panes were translucent. They would emit the gray light of the pre-dawn, but he couldn't see anything more than a blur through them. Will knelt on the couch and unlatched the frame, pushing it up and craning his head through the opening to study the small porch of the cabin. A gust of chill entered the room, and he heard Evelyn stir as it eddied around, causing the sacking curtain to billow inward and the embers in the fireplace to glow more fiercely until a small tongue of yellow flame was released from them. Somewhere in the trees, a bird was greeting the first light of the new day, and the tapping sound was obscured once more. Then he had it. It was water, dripping from the end of a long icicle that depended from the porch roof, falling onto an upturned bucket that had been left on the edge of the porch. Tap, 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 tap. Will frowned to himself. There was something significant in this, he knew, but his mind, still fuddled with sleep, couldn't quite grasp what it was. He stood, still stretching, and shivered slightly as he left the last warmth of his blanket and made his way to the door. Hoping not to wake Evelyn, he eased the latch upward and slowly opened the door, holding it up so the sagging leather hinges wouldn't allow the bottom edge to scrape the floor of the cabin. Closing the door behind him, he stepped out onto the rough boards of the porch, feeling them strike icy cold against his bare feet. He moved to the spot where the water was dripping endlessly onto the bucket, realizing as he went that other icicles hanging from the roof were also dripping water. He hadn't seen this before. He was sure they usually didn't do this. He glanced out at the trees where the first rays of sun were beginning to filter through. In the forest, there was a slithering thump as a load of snow finally slid clear of the pine branches that had supported it for months and fell into a heap to the ground below. And it was then that Will realized the significance of the endless tap, tap, tap that had woken him. Behind him, he heard the door creak, and he turned to see Evelyn, her hair wildly tousled, her blanket wrapped tight around her against the cold. "What is it?" she asked him. "Is something wrong?" He hesitated a second, glancing at the growing puddle of water beside the bucket. "It's the thaw," he said finally. After their meager breakfast, Will and Evelyn sat in the early morning sun as it streamed across the porch. Neither of them had wanted to discuss the significance of Will's earlier discovery, although they had since found more signs of the thaw. Small patches of soaked brown grass were showing through the snow-cover on the ground surrounding the cabin, and the sound of wet snow sliding from the trees to hit the ground was becoming increasingly common. The snow was still thick on the ground and in the trees, of course, but the signs were there that the thaw had begun, and that, inexorably, it would continue. "I suppose we'll have to think about moving on," Will said, finally voicing the thought that had been in both of their minds. "You're not strong enough yet," Evelyn told him. It had been barely 3 weeks since he had thrown off the mind-numbing effects of the warm weed given to him as a yard slave in Ragnet's lodge. Will had been weakened by the inadequate food and clothing and regimen of punishing physical work before they had made their escape. Since then, their meager diet in the cabin had been enough to sustain life, but not enough to restore his strength or endurance. They had lived on the cornmeal and flour that had been stored in the cabin, along with a small stock of vegetables and the stringy meat from whatever game Evelyn and he had been able to snare. There was little enough of that in the winter, and what game they had managed to catch had been in poor conditioning itself, providing little in the way of nourishment. Will shrugged. "I'll manage," he said simply. "I'll have to." And that, of course, was the heart of the problem. They both knew that once the snow in the high passes had melted, hunters would again begin to visit the high country where they found themselves. Already, Evelyn had seen one such, the mysterious rider in the forest on the day when Will's senses had returned to him. Fortunately, since that day, there had been no further signs of him, but it was a warning. Others would come, and before they did, Will and Evelyn would have to be long gone, heading down the far side of the mountain pass and across the border into Tutland?
I think that's valid. We're just going to take that and run with it. Tutland, let's go.
Evelyn shook her head doubtfully. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she realized that Will was right. Once the thaw was well and truly underway, they would have to leave whether she felt like he was strong enough to travel or not. "Anyway," she said at last, "we have a few weeks yet. The thaw's only just started, and who knows, we may even get another cold snap." It was possible, she thought. Perhaps not probable, but at least it was possible. Will nodded agreement. "There's always that," he said. The silence fell over them once more like a blanket. Abruptly, Evelyn stood dusting off her breeches. "I'll go check on the snares," she said, and when Will began to rise to accompany her, she stopped him. "You stay here," she said gently. "From now on, you're going to have to conserve your strength as much as possible." Will hesitated, then nodded. He recognized that she was right. She collected the hessian sack they had used as a game bag and slung it over her shoulder. Then, with a small smile in his direction, the girl headed off into the trees. Feeling useless and dispirited, Will slowly began to gather up the wooden platters they had used for their meal. All he was good for, he thought bitterly, was washing up. The snare line had moved farther and further from the cabin over the past 3 weeks. As small animals, rabbits, squirrels, and the occasional snow hare had fallen prey to the snares that Will had built, the other animals in the area had become wary. As a consequence, they had been compelled to move the snares into new locations every few days, each one a little further away from the cabin than the one before. Will estimated that she had a good 40 minutes walking on the narrow uphill track before she would reach the first snare. Of course, if she'd been able to move straight to it, the walk would have been considerably shorter, but the track wound and wandered through the trees, more than doubling the distance she had to cover. The signs of the thaw were all around her, now that she was aware of it. The snow no longer squeaked dryly underfoot as she walked. It was heavier, wetter, and her steps sank deeply into it. The leather of her boots were already soaked from the contact with the melting snow. The last time she had walked this way, she reflected, the snow had simply coated her boots as fine, dry powder. She also began to notice more activity among the wildlife in the area. Birds flitted throughout the trees in greater numbers than she previously had seen, and she startled a rabbit on the track, sending it scurrying back into the protection of the snow-covered thicket of blackberries. At least, she thought, all this extra activity might increase the chances of finding some worthwhile game in the snares. Evelyn saw the discreet sign that Will had cut into the bark of a pine and turned off the track to the spot to find the spot where she and Will had laid the first of the snares. She recalled how grateful she had greeted his recovery from the warm weed drug. Her own survival skills were negligible, and Will had provided welcome expertise in devising and setting snares to supplement their diet. It was all part of his ranger training under Holt, he had told her. She remembered how, when he had first mentioned the older ranger's name, his eyes had misted for a few moments and his voice choked slightly. Not for the first time, the two young people had felt very, very far from home. As she pushed her way through the snow-laden bushes, becoming wetter and wetter in the process, she felt a surge of pleasure. The first snare in the line held the body of a small ground foraging bird. They had caught a few of these previously, and the bird's flesh made excellent eating. About the size of a small chicken, it had carelessly poked its neck through the wired noose of the snare, then became entangled. Evelyn smiled grimly as she thought how once she might have objected to the cruelty of the bird's death. Now, all she felt was a sense of satisfaction as she realized they would eat well today. Amazing how an empty belly could change your perspective, she thought, removing the noose from the bird's neck and stuffing the small carcass into her makeshift game bag. She reset the snare, sprinkling a few seeds of corn onto the ground beyond it, then arose to her feet, frowning in annoyance as she realized that the melting snow had left 2 wet patches on her knees as she crouched. Evelyn sensed, rather than heard, the movement in the tree behind her and began to turn. Before she could move, she felt an iron grip around her throat, and as she gasped in fright, a fur-gloved hand, smelling vilely of smoke, sweat, and dirt, clapped over her mouth and nose, cutting off her cry for help. Give her more trauma!
As if we thought stuff can get worse.
As if we thought things were going uphill.
The chapter starts off so strong, and it's like, yes, like it's going to be tough, but they're going to be fine, and they're going to survive, and they're going to escape, and then it's like,
Evelyn's getting kidnapped again! Let that girl have a break! Yep. Starting that 4th book off with a bang.
Speaking of the 4th book, the live stream is at a different moment. I think we'll also put this in the Discord and we'll share it on our other socials. Yes. But for everyone who's here, it's taking place a week earlier on Sunday. So Sunday, May 14th.
At 11 a.m. my time. So it's an hour later than normal.
Yeah. So that's 6. Like we would start now, actually. So it's going to be 6 for people in Western Europe.
Yeah, Central Standard Time is going to be 11 a.m. Just because I fly back from a 14-hour flight the day before, and I already know I'm going to be jet-lagged so hard. So...
Which is valid. And I have...
Bear with me if I'm a mess next live stream. But I'm really, really busy in May since I am out of the country for 2 weeks, and I was trying to kind of plan around my schedule and plan around...
It was working for your schedule, and then... we decided to have Apprentice Day on the 20th. And I love you, but no, I'm going there, not here.
Which is fair. But yes,
So
I will announce
Sunday,
that
May 14th.
once we end the stream. I'll announce that. So you might need to start the book a little bit earlier. But I mean, it's almost exactly in 1 month.
Yeah.
So if y'all can make it, please do. If not, I understand because it is on a Sunday and we don't typically have them on the Sunday. But for scheduling purposes, we got to do what we got to do.
And of course, from now onwards, you can also suggest songs for the playlist again for book 3. I already saw someone.
Depressing.
Yeah, please find something happy too. I saw someone already suggest "You're on Your Own, Kid" for Will, which I will definitely add after I cry. No, no, but yeah, feel free
to grow. I love it. I love it. Alrighty. Well, thank you so much to everyone who attended this live show. Hopefully it was a fun time. Congrats to Reggie. I will be contacting you on Discord, letting you know about your prize. And yeah, be sure you pick up book 4, and I hope to see everyone there. Have a good rest of your Saturday. It's Saturday, right?
Yeah. Enjoy dinner.